All right, let's talk about procrastination. We're all familiar with it, that feeling of putting things off. But this isn't going to be about just trying harder or feeling guilty. Nope. We're going to break this thing down, really get into the science of why our brains do this, and then arm ourselves with some actual practical systems to finally get moving.
Man, does this hit home or what? That little buzz you get from making a plan, from organizing your desk, from thinking about the work, only to look up and realize you haven't actually started? If that sounds familiar, I promise you, you're in good company. This feeling of being stuck in the starting blocks, it's a totally human thing. And today, we're going to figure out exactly why it happens.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The first thing we gotta do is throw out the word lazy. We use it all the time, right? Oh, I'm just being lazy. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if it's not a character flaw at all? Because psychologists are finding that what's really going on is much deeper and way more interesting than just laziness.
So here's the big idea, the key mind shift. Procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. Think about it. We're not really avoiding the task itself. We're trying to avoid the feelings that come with it. Boredom, anxiety, frustration, maybe even feeling like a fraud. Our brain is just trying to make us feel better right now, even if it knows we're going to pay for it later. And that's the crazy irony of the whole thing, isn't it? The work itself is rarely as bad as we imagine. It's the hours or days or weeks of avoiding it that really hurt. That constant nagging hum of guilt and stress in the back of your mind. That feeling is almost always way worse than just sitting down and doing the thing.
So why does starting something feel like such an uphill battle? Well, it turns out there's basically a civil war happening inside your head every single day.
Author James Clear breaks it down like this. You have a future self. That's the one who's super motivated, who wants to get in shape, write a book, achieve big goals. But it's your present self that actually has to do the work. And your present self, it doesn't care about next month. It wants instant gratification. It wants to watch another YouTube video or grab a cookie right now. And that's the core of the struggle.
So what's fueling this whole battle? Well, neuroscientist Andrew Huberman points to a chemical we've all heard of, dopamine. But here's the thing we usually get wrong. We think of it as the pleasure molecule. It's actually more like the motivation molecule. It's the gas in the engine that drives us to get up and go after things. And this little nugget of information changes everything. See, we think we get the dopamine hit when we achieve the goal, but really, our brain releases it in anticipation of the reward. It's the chemical that makes us want things and chase them. It's the propeller, not the destination. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. When you want something, your dopamine goes up, but then it drops below where you started. It creates this feeling of pain or lack. And here's the crazy part, that uncomfortable feeling, that trough, isn't a bug, it's a feature. Your brain does that on purpose to create the urgency you need to actually take action. Procrastination is what happens when we try to fill that painful trough with a quick, easy fix, like scrolling social media, instead of doing the real work.
Okay, so if we know our present self is basically a toddler who wants a cookie, and our dopamine system can be easily hijacked, then just trying to be more disciplined is a losing strategy. We can't rely on willpower. We need something better. We need systems. Simple, repeatable tricks that help us get started without a big internal fight.
Remember, the whole game is about crossing what James Clear calls the action line, that moment you actually begin. Once you're over that line, the resistance just melts away. The anxiety of avoiding the task is almost always worse than the task itself. So every single strategy we're about to talk about is designed to do just one thing: make starting as easy and frictionless as humanly possible. This one is genius in its simplicity. Take whatever goal you have and shrink it down so small that it takes less than 2 minutes to do. Read 30 pages becomes read 1 page. Go for a 3-mile run becomes put on your running shoes. You make it so laughably easy to start that your brain can't say no, and that little bit of momentum is often all you need to just keep going. Here's a similar idea from Cal Newport. You create a simple ritual you do every single time before you start focused work. This isn't about getting motivated, it's about making the process automatic, almost robotic. By following a checklist, you take emotion and decision-making out of the equation. You're not deciding if you're going to work, you're just, following the steps that get you there.
This next one is a total game changer. Stop fighting your own body's natural rhythm. We all have times of day when we're sharp and focused and times when we feel like a zombie. The trick is to match the right task to the right energy level.
Daniel Pink's research shows that most of us have a peak in the morning. That's when you should tackle your hardest, most analytical work. Then comes the trough in the afternoon, perfect for boring admin tasks and emails. And then you often get a creative rebound in the evening, which is great for brainstorming. Work with your biology, not against it.
And finally, here's a super simple method that's over 100 years old but still works like a charm. At the end of the day, you just write down the 6 most important things for tomorrow and put them in order. The next day, you start on number 1, and you don't touch anything else until it's done. It forces you to focus and cuts right through that feeling of being overwhelmed by a giant to-do list.
All right, now for what might be the single most important, and frankly, the most counterintuitive part of this whole puzzle. When you inevitably slip up and procrastinate, the absolute worst thing you can possibly do is beat yourself up about it.
I mean, just think about it for a second. We already said procrastination is about avoiding negative feelings like anxiety and fear, right? So when you yell at yourself for procrastinating, what are you doing? You're just dumping a huge pile of shame and anxiety on top of the original pile. It makes you feel worse, which makes you more likely to avoid the task next time.
It really comes down to these 2 paths. You can get stuck in that vicious cycle where beating yourself up just leads to more fear and more procrastination. Or you can choose the virtuous cycle. You can practice a little self-compassion, recognize that it's okay, that you're human, and create a sense of safety that actually makes it easier to try again.
When you forgive yourself for slipping up, you're essentially lowering the stakes. You're breaking that toxic link between what you accomplish and who you are as a person. And that creates the psychological safety you need to tackle hard things, because you know that even if you stumble, it's not the end of the world. You can just get back up and try again, without all the heavy baggage.
So when you really get down to it, this isn't just about finishing a report or cleaning the garage. Every time you use one of these systems to cross that action line, every time you choose to be kind to yourself instead of critical, you're not just getting a task done, you are literally casting a vote for the person you want to become. You're building that future self, one small action at a time.